In the dim pulse of a stadium's underbelly, where the roar of 80,000 voices still echoed like a fading heartbeat, a single lens betrayed him. Jungkook, the golden magne of BTS, stood alone in the wings, his silhouette etched against the crimson glow of emergency lights. His fingers, calloused from years of gripping microphones like lifelines, trembled as they brushed away a tear that had no business falling. Not here, not now, when the encore's confetti still clung to his sweat-soaked shirt. The camera, that relentless voyeur slung from a drone's undercarriage, caught it all. The quiver in his lower lip, the way his eyes, usually sharp as polished obsidian, softened into something raw, unguarded. For a split second, the world beyond the barricades glimpsed the boy beneath the idol. And in that fracture, everything shifted. The T had always been the eyes, hadn't it? From the grainy YouTube clips of a 14-year-old auditioning in Busan's rain-slick streets, belting out twist and shout, with a voice that cracked like thunder over the Han River, Jungkook's gaze had been the anchor. It pulled you in, made strangers feel seen, as if he were whispering secrets across oceans of screaming fans. But by 27, that same intensity had become a double-edged blade. BTS had ascended from scrappy underdogs to global colossi, their discography a tapestry of anthems that stitched together the frayed edges of a pandemic-ravaged planet. Dynamite had lit up quarantine nights. Butter had melted the frost of isolation. Jungkook, the youngest, the versatile one, singer, dancer, reluctant leader in moments of quiet crisis, embodied it all. He was the one who dove headfirst into the choreography's frenzy, his body a blur of precision and power, while the Hyungs steadied the ship. Yet beneath the veneered smiles and the meticulously timed waves, the weight accumulated like frost on a high wire. The tour that birthed this moment was no ordinary odyssey. It was the Love Yourself farewell circuit, a sprawling elegy to 7 years of sold-out arenas, reimagined in the shadow of military enlistment looming like a guillotine. Jungkook had joked about it in V-Lives, his dimples flashing like distress signals. "I'll come back buffer than ever. Army gains army." But the levity masked the churn. Schedules blurred into a ceaseless churn. Dawn rehearsals in Seoul's frostbitten studios, flights that warped time zones into knots, fan signs where he'd etch hearts into posters until his wrists screamed. Offstage, he sought solace in the mundane. Midnight sketches of tattooed forearms in his notebook, or belting Whitney Houston covers into a hotel showerhead, steam curling like forgotten dreams. His members knew the signs. The way he'd linger in the van after shows, staring out at cityscapes that all blurred into one indifferent sprawl, or how Namjoon's hand on his shoulder, during sound checks, carried the weight of unspoken inventories. That night in Los Angeles, the air hummed with the residue of triumph. The Rose Bowl had trembled under microcosmos. The finale where Jungkook's solo bridge, his voice soaring over a sea of phone lights, had drawn a collective inhale from the crowd. It was the kind of performance that etched myths. The magne, drenched in purple strobes, extending a hand as if to cradle the universe itself. Backstage, though, the adrenaline's afterburn left him hollow. The group huddled in a green room that smelled of stale coffee and victory sweat, Gene cracking puns about his post-concert glow-up, while Taeyong scrolled through fan cams, his laughter a balm. Jungkook demurred, slipping away to the corridor where equipment crates loomed like ancient monoliths. He leaned against a wall scrawled with faded Sharpie encouragements. "Fighting, JK. From Manila with love, and let the exhale come, long and ragged." The drone camera, part of the production's high-tech arsenal meant to capture authentic behind-the-scenes magic, hovered innocuously at first. Its operator, a tech whiz from HYB's Innovation Lab, had been briefed. Sweep the wings for golden hour shots, the poetry of exhaustion transmuted into art. But as it banked low, the lens zeroed in on Jungkook's unraveling. There he was, head bowed, shoulders curving inward like a wilting reed. A sob escaped. Not the performative hitch of a ballad, but a guttural thing, born from the marrow. His hands clawed at his hair, The black strands died for the era's aesthetic, now matted and defiant. I can't. Not yet, he murmured to no one, the words fracturing in the cavernous space. The camera drank it in, its feed piping live to a control booth where editors froze, thumbs hovering over cut buttons. One whispered into a headset, "This feels wrong." But the stream was already slipping into the ether, a glitch in the broadcast that funneled straight to Army's vigilant feeds. Across the globe, screens flickered to life. In a Manila dorm room, a college student paused mid-ramen slurp, her heart lurching as the clip looped on Twitter. "Is he okay?" she typed, fingers flying, the question blooming into a hashtag that snowballed. Hashtag protect Jungkook. In Berlin's pre-dawn hush, a fan artist mid-sketch set down her stylus, tears sinking with his, the vulnerability a mirror to her own late-night battles with imposter syndrome. The wave crested in Seoul, where dispatch accounts dissected the footage frame by frame. The micro-tremor in his jaw, the way his free hand fisted the hem of his shirt, knuckles whitening like accusations. Theories erupted. Exhaustion from the tour's grueling pivot, whispers of personal tempests amid the group's hiatus, even wilder speculations tying it to the relentless scrutiny of his solo endeavors, like the raw introspection of Euphoria remixed into something too real for the spotlight. Yet the fracture revealed more than fragility. It unearthed the architecture of endurance. Jungkook had always been the mosaic maker, piecing together BTS's kaleidoscope from shards of doubt. Recall the 2013 trainee days when he'd cry in the practice room mirrors, legs buckling under dance routines that demanded superhuman grace, only for Yoongi to slide a water bottle across the floor with a gruff, "Breathe, kid. We're building empires, not breaking bones." Or the 2018 Billboard surge, when jet lag carved hollows under his eyes, and he'd confide in Jimin over shared earbuds. "Hyung, what if they love the mask more than the mess?" These weren't footnotes. They were the scaffolding. The vulnerability in LA wasn't a collapse, but a confession. The camera's cold eye forcing what spotlights usually polished away. The human calculus of fame, where adoration is both oxygen and anchor, as the clip proliferated, shared in Weber's threads, memed with protective overlays of bunny ears and heart emojis. The fandom's response coalesced into something alchemical. Army, that vast, fractious republic of devotees, didn't shatter. They fortified. Donation drives surged from mental health NGOs in Jungkook's name. Purple ribbons tied to subway poles in Busan as quiet vigils. Letters poured into Big Hits P.O. boxes, not the usual effusions of thirst or trivia, but dispatches from the front lines of their own frailties. "Your tear reminded me it's okay to pause," wrote a Tokyo barista navigating grief's aftershocks. In this echo chamber turned sanctuary, the idle fan dyad inverted. Jungkook, unwitting architect of catharsis, became the permission slip for a generation to name their own weariness. It echoed the broader tremor in K-pop's gleaming facade, the industry's churn, where idols are forged in crucibles of sleep deprivation and public vivisection, yet persist as beacons for the overlooked. Think of the 2020 Black Lives Matter solidarity posts, BTS halting promotions to amplify voices, or the quiet advocacy for artists' rights amid contract scandals. Jungkook's moment wasn't isolated. It was a thread in the weave, illuminating how visibility, once a gilded cage, could crack open into communion. Days later, in a dimly lit Jeju villa rented for the group's decompression, Jungkook surfaced from a storm. The members had circled instinctively. Hoseok queuing his favorite fried chicken delivery, Seekjin brewing herbal teas, laced with honeyed quips. They watched the clip together on a cracked tablet, the room thick with the salt of unspoken solidarity. "You know," Jungkook said, voice steadying like a compass finding north, "I thought I was hiding it. But maybe that's the point. We're not statues." Laughter broke the tension, tentative at first, then full-throated, the kind that reshapes silences into stories. He posted later on Weverse a simple photo of his sketchbook, a half-finished portrait of a lone figure under stars, captioned, "Thank you for seeing me. Let's keep going together." The replies cascaded, a digital hearth, affirmations in a dozen dialects, fan art blooming like wildflowers in cracked concrete. In the aftermath, the industry paused, if only briefly. HYB issued guidelines on ethical filming, drones grounded for soul-searching audits. Pundits in Variety and Billboard pinned op-eds on the vulnerability economy, probing how raw feeds, once curated illusions, now risk exposing the idol's undercarriage, forcing reckonings with consent in an era of omnipresent optics. But beyond the discourse, something quieter endured, a subtle reconfiguration of trust. Fans, long accused of parasocial overreach, demonstrated restraint, channeling fervor into advocacy. Petitions for better tour wellness protocols, playlists curated for collective unwinding. Jungkook, resuming rehearsals with a lightness in his step, inked a new tattoo, a delicate wave cresting into a bird's wing, symbol of tides turned and flights reclaimed. And so, in the quiet hours when stadium echoes fade to whispers, that captured tear lingers not as scar, but as sacrament, a reminder that even icons, polished to luminescence, harbor tempests. It whispers to the boy in Busan still dreaming under fluorescent hums, to the fan scrolling through feeds at 3 a.m., that fragility isn't fracture, but the very vein through which light travels. Jungkook moves forward, not despite the lens, but through it, his gaze once more a bridge, inviting, unyielding, alive. The world watches, not to devour, but to witness. And in that shift, the roar softens to a shared breath. Months slip by like frames in a slow burn montage, each one layering new textures onto the raw nerve exposed in that LA corridor. Jungkook returned to the grind, not with armored resolve, but a tentative alchemy, transmuting the leak into something malleable, a motif woven into his solo arc Golden, his debut album, dropped like a meteor into the summer haze of 2023, its tracks pulsing with the aftershocks of that vulnerability. The title song's video, directed by a visionary who'd once filmed wildfires in the Australian outback, opened on a figure adrift in a vast, mirrored labyrinth, reflections fracturing into infinities, until a single crack let in the dawn. Fans dissected it in sleepless forums. Was the shattered pain a nod to the drone's intrusion, or the broader pain of public personhood? Jungkook, in a rare NME interview, sidestepped with a half-smile. It's about chasing the light through the breaks. Sometimes you don't choose the fracture, it chooses you. The enlistment clock ticked louder now, an inexorable metronome syncing with the group's final dispatches. In the interim, BTS scattered like seeds on windswept fields. Namjoon curating art exhibits in New York, where his poetry chapbooks sold out amid whispers of philosophical exile. Yoongi holing up in his genius lab, minting lo-fi confessions that charted like underground rivers surfacing. Jungkook, ever the fulcrum, balanced solo promotions with covert cameos, a ghostly harmony on Jimin's like Crazy, his voice threading through the ether like a lifeline tossed across voids. But the real tether was Army, that constellation of souls who'd alchemized his tear into talisman. Fan projects proliferated, mosaic murals in Times Square spelling John Jungkook, unbreakable bloom, each tile a Polaroid from personal reckonings, a survivor's ink-smeared wrist, a migrant's faded visa stamp. In Jakarta's humid sprawl, a collective of university students launched Echo Chambers, a podcast series interviewing idols kin on the unseen tolls of stardom, dedicating the inaugural episode to him with archival clips of his trainee-era resolve. Yet intimacy breeds its own tempests. The clip's virality had unintended ripples, dredging up specters from the fandom's undercurrents. Antis, those digital phantoms thriving on schadenfreude, twisted the moment into ammunition. Forum threads bloated with armchair diagnoses. He's just burnt out from chasing relevance. Or crueler barbs questioning his mettle against the Hyung's stoic facades. Jungkook scrolled through them in the dead of night, phone screen casting blue hollows on his face in the bunker's dim confines. Why does it sting more when it's true? He confessed to Taeyong during a late-night Weverse Live, The two of them sprawled on a Jeju beach, waves gnawing at volcanic rocks like insistent doubts. Taeyong, with his painter's eye for shadows, replied softly, "Because truth isn't the enemy. The spin is. You're the one who taught us that. Remember 7, dancing through the downpour." It was a callback to the rain-soaked choreography that had birthed a summer anthem. Jungkook's form slicing water like a blade through silk, defiant and deluge as December's chill crept into Seoul's high-rises. The inevitable arrived. Enlistment papers stamped, dates etched in ink that felt like prophecy. The announcement landed like a stone in still water, concentric ripples fanning across Weverse and beyond. To Army, the letter read, pinned in Jungkook's looping script scanned for authenticity. "This isn't goodbye. It's a deep breath before the chorus swells. I'll train. I'll serve. I'll return with stories sharper than any stage light." The fandom's vigil was visceral. Lightstick waves in Gwangwaman Square, forming a human aurora, purple petals carpeting the path to the Yongsan base. He walked it alone, per protocol. No entourage, just a duffel slung over one shoulder, the weight of 7 years' artifacts inside. A crumpled set list from the Rose Bowl, a mixtape USB from Yoongi's vault, a Polaroid of the 7 grinning like conspirators in a moonlit van. The barracks swallowed him whole at first, the regimentation a stark counterpoint to arena freedoms. Dawn reveille-shattered sleep cycles honed for nocturnal creativity. Marches through frost-rimed fields, tested limbs tuned for fluid spins, not rigid salutes. Letters arrived in avalanches, crates of them, sorted by HYB staff in bundles tied with twine, each envelope a portal from the world he'd paused. One from a Mumbai engineer detailed how Begin had soundtracked her coding marathons through postpartum fog. Another, from a rural Canadian teen, enclosed a sketch of Jungkook as an armored knight, shield emblazoned with a rabbit silhouette, captioned, "Your vulnerability forged this." He read them by flashlight under wool blankets, the words a counter-rhythm to the barracks' snores, forging quiet revolutions in his chest. In stolen moments, he'd hum fragments into a contraband voice memo app, snatches of anthems reimagined for rifle drills, blood, sweat, and tears, morphed into a cadence for endurance runs. Word filtered back through sanctioned channels. A V live from the base, Jungkook in fatigues, hair buzzed to stubble that accentuated the sharp planes of his face, demonstrating push-ups with a grin that disarmed the lens. Missed the stages? Every second, he admitted, sweat beading like diamonds on his brow. But this? It's teaching me the strength in stillness, the kind that doesn't flex for cameras. Army lapped it up, remixing clips into motivational reels. Soldiers worldwide syncing drills to dope, a global chain of solidarity. Yet the true undercurrent was the letter's reciprocity. Jungkook began replying in batches, his script evolving from polished prose to rawer strokes. Admissions of homesick pangs at mess hall suppers, epiphanies from starlit century shifts about fame's fleeting orbit. "You wrote that my tear gave you permission," one missive read, addressed to the Manila's student from that fateful night. "Yours give me the map back to myself." By mid-2025, as spring thawed the DMZ's barbed fringes, discharge loomed like a horizon blush. The group reconvened in fragments. Hobie's discharge sparking a flurry of variety show cameos, his sunshine dimples undimmed by the drill sergeant's bark. Jungkook emerged last, the magne no more but the eternal pivot, body honed to corded sinew, gaze tempered like steel in a slow forge. The airport reunion was chaos scripted by joy. Screams cascading from barricades, petals exploding like fireworks as the 7 collided in a tangle of limbs and laughter. Cameras swarmed, but this time, the lenses felt less predatory. HYB's revamped protocols mandating consent buffers, drones leashed to ethical tethers. Jungkook, mic in hand for the ad-libbed presser, quipped, 2 years older, infinitely wiser. And yes, the gains are real. Blame the ruck marches. The comeback album, Echoes of Us, crystallized the interregnum's sediment. Tracks layered like geological strata. A haunting duet with Namjoon on rebuilding from ruins. Jungkook's falsetto weaving through rap's gravelly introspection. A bass-thrummed banger co-penned with Yoongi, sampling Barrick's bugle calls into a defiant groove. The lead single's video, shot in the Rose Bowl's empty maw at twilight, circled back to origins. A lone figure in the wings, not unraveling but unfurling, arms outstretched to a phantom crowd. The drone returned, but now as accomplice, its gaze collaborative, capturing the art from fracture to flight. Critics hailed it as K-pop's post-enlistment manifesto, but the pulse was personal, a reclamation of narrative, where vulnerability wasn't the hook but the heartbeat. In the tour's kickoff at Tokyo Dome, the air crackled with pent-up thunder. 80,000 voices, a polyglot hymn, surged as Jungkook took center stage for Euphoria Reprise. The original's wistful yearning amplified, strings swelling like veins under skin. Midway, he paused, the spotlights pooling at his feet like liquid mercury. 2 years ago, he said, voice carrying without amplification, a camera caught me breaking. You caught me healing. The arena hushed, then erupted, not in frenzy, but a resonant hum, lightsticks pulsing in synchronized waves. It was the fandom's masterstroke. No hashtags, no frenzy, just presence. A collective exhale mirroring his OW as the final notes faded, confetti raining like benevolent ash. Jungkook lingered under the house lights, surveying the sea of faces etched in memory's soft focus. Some were veterans of the 2013 trainee leaks, others fresh converts from TikTok serendipity. All threads in the tapestry he'd unwittingly spun. The boy from Busan's backstreets, who'd once auditioned with dreams too big for his frame, stood taller now, not in stature, but in the quiet sovereignty of scars worn as regalia. Fame's glare had schooled him in its dualities. The adoration that could corrode if clutched too tight, the exposure that wielded wisely, could illuminate the hidden hollows in us all in the years that followed, as BTS evolved into a legacy unbound by chronology, anthologies remastered, mentorships forged with rising acts. Jungkook's arc became parable. He launched a foundation, fracture to flight, funneling proceeds into artist wellness retreats. Silent cabins in the Bavarian Alps where musicians traded spotlights for star charts, journaling prompts drawn from his own dispatches. Fans, ever the co-authors, amplified it. Crowdfunding expansions to include non-performers, civilians grappling with the performative pressures of late capitalism's stage point one autumn evening, in a dimly lit Incheon cafe overlooking the harbor's restless churn. Jungkook met the drone operator from that fateful night. Now a freelance cinematographer specializing in documentary intimacies, she slid across the table a USB drive etched with unseen frames. Outtake from the tour, moments of levity amid the grind. The group pillow fighting in a Helsinki hotel, Jungkook sketching absurd caricatures of Jin's broad shoulders. I kept them, she said, eyes meeting his with the frankness of shared complicity. Not to expose, but to remember, we're all just capturing light in the dark. He nodded, the weight of the drive light as a promise. Outside, the city thrummed with its own narratives. Salarymen dissolving into neon blurs, lovers tracing constellations in smog-veiled skies. Jungkook stepped into the dusk, collar turned against the wind. The harbor salt a faint echo of tears long transfigured. The world, vast and voracious, spun on. But in its whirl, he'd carved a space where fragility was not footnote, but foundation. And in that carving, he'd invited us all to lay down our masks, to let the cameras see, truly see, the beautiful, bruising pulse beneath. The roar, once a devouring tide, had softened to symphony, a shared breath, eternal, expanding.